The Cecil Hotel Mystery, Elisa Lam's Final Night. Elisa Lam was born on April 30th, 1991, in Vancouver, British Columbia, a Canadian child of immigrants from Hong Kong, raised between two worlds. At home, she was the dutiful daughter who helped around the family's restaurant. At school, she was quiet but bright, often lost in the rhythm of books and music. From an early age, Elisa carried within her the familiar tension of the first-generation dream, the desire to make her parents proud, and the quiet fear of falling short of their expectations. She loved reading, especially modern literature and poetry. She quoted Chuck Palahniuk, Murakami, and loved the quiet melancholy of Sylvia Plath. Her blog, Nouvelle/Nouveau, became her diary, a window into her thoughts and her struggle to understand herself. Through her words, a portrait emerges, not of a mystery, but of a young woman navigating the fragile boundary between self-discovery and despair. She wrote with honesty, sometimes humor, and at times, haunting vulnerability. In one entry, she said, "You are always haunted by the idea that you're wasting your life." Another, "I wish I could be as fearless as I pretend to be." Behind the keyboard, she was unfiltered. She shared her insecurities about loneliness, about feeling invisible, about the weight of her bipolar disorder. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, conditions she managed with medication and therapy. But even on her good days, she wrote of an emptiness that followed her. A sense that happiness was something she could touch, but never hold. And yet, she wasn't hopeless. Far from it. She was curious about the world. She dreamed of travel, of art galleries, city lights, and quiet bookstores tucked in corners of new streets. She loved photography, and she loved stories not just to escape, but to understand herself through them. When she planned her trip to the United States in early 2013, it was a declaration of independence. She called it her West Coast adventure. Her itinerary included San Diego, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, and finally Los Angeles, the City of Angels. It was meant to be her first solo trip, a time to rediscover her freedom and perhaps her courage. To her family, she promised to check in daily. To her followers online, she wrote excitedly about her travels, about the thrill of being somewhere new. Her blog reflected optimism mixed with introspection. A young woman on the cusp of adulthood, hopeful that distance might help her find clarity. But even on the road, shadows followed her. There were hints of anxiety, posts about exhaustion, fear, the unpredictable rhythm of her emotions. She mentioned struggling with medication adjustments and mood swings. And yet, in between, there were moments of light. Laughter with strangers, photographs of bookstores, brief flashes of joy that made the darkness worth enduring. Elisa wasn't running away. She was trying to move forward. In many ways, her journey symbolized the universal search for meaning, a human story of trying to be okay, even when the world feels overwhelming. When she arrived in Los Angeles at the end of January 2013, she checked into a place she could afford, the Cecil Hotel on Main Street. It was old, worn, and infamous, but to Elisa, it was just another stop on her adventure. She didn't know that the building carried its own ghosts. She didn't know that her name would soon be forever tied to its walls. To understand what happened next, we have to understand the place she walked into. The Cecil Hotel was built in 1924, during Los Angeles's golden age, an era of optimism, movie stars, and new wealth. But like many dreams of that time, it decayed quickly. Within a few decades, the hotel had fallen from glamour to grit. As the city's wealth moved west, the heart of downtown deteriorated, and the Cecil became a refuge for the forgotten, drifters, addicts, and the mentally ill. By the 1980s, it stood at the edge of Skid Row, a neighborhood haunted by poverty and despair. Within its walls, dozens of deaths had occurred. Suicides, overdoses, murders. It became notorious among locals and travelers alike. The press began to call it the Suicide Hotel. Serial killers had even stayed there. Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist who murdered multiple women, had lived in the Cecil while reporting on Los Angeles crime in the early 1990s. And in the mid-1980s, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, was rumored to have stayed there during his killing spree. Whether myth or fact, these stories gave the building an aura that was impossible to ignore. The lobby was grand but faded, its marble floors scuffed and its chandeliers dulled by time. The air smelled of bleach and loneliness. At night, strange sounds echoed through its corridors. Footsteps, whispers, the occasional scream from Skid Row drifting through open windows. The hotel's management tried to survive by rebranding. They divided the building into sections. Part of it remained the Cecil, the other part renamed Stay on Main, marketed toward young travelers and backpackers. It was cheap, central, and convenient, the kind of place that lured people like Elisa Lam. She checked in on January 28, 2013. At first, she shared a room with other travelers in the hostel-style area. But according to reports, her roommates complained of odd behavior, things like leaving strange notes or talking to herself. After 2 days, hotel staff moved her to a private room on the 5th floor. No one could have known that in less than a week, she would vanish. During her stay, she called home daily, until she didn't. On February 1st, her parents in Vancouver stopped receiving her calls. They waited a day, then another. When she failed to check out of her room, they reported her missing. Then she steps out of frame and the doors finally close. That was the last known footage of Elisa Lam alive. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. Uploaded first by the LAPD, then mirrored across YouTube and social media, it captured the internet's full attention. The title alone was enough to intrigue millions. Elisa Lam, elevator surveillance footage, Cecil Hotel. Within days, the clip had millions of views. It wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. It was an online phenomenon, a haunting puzzle with no clear answer. Comment sections filled with speculation. Some viewers swore she was hiding from someone. Others said she looked possessed. Some blamed drugs, others paranoia or something supernatural. People slowed the footage down, zoomed in, analyzed her movements frame by frame. They debated whether the elevator's timestamp had been altered, whether seconds were missing, whether someone else's shadow could be seen in the hallway. They claimed to see shapes in the static, faces in the reflection of the elevator door. The internet had become an open investigation, an army of strangers convinced they could uncover the truth. But as millions watched the clip again and again, something strange happened. The line between curiosity and obsession began to blur. The mystery deepened when hotel guests started to complain about the water. In mid-February, residents reported weak water pressure, strange smells, and dark, discolored liquid coming from the taps. Some said the water tasted odd. Others described it as sweet, metallic, or off. On February 19, 2013, a hotel maintenance worker went to the rooftop to check the water tanks. To reach them, he had to climb a ladder to a locked platform and open a heavy lid. Inside one of the tanks, he made a discovery that would shock the world. Elisa Lam's body was floating face up, naked, her clothes drifting nearby in the cold water. She had been missing for 19 days. The news broke within hours. TV crews surrounded the hotel. Helicopters hovered above the building. Reporters spoke of a gruesome mystery in downtown Los Angeles. How did Elisa Lam end up in a sealed water tank on the roof of a secured hotel? How did no one hear, see, or suspect anything? The LAPD announced that the rooftop door leading to the tanks was alarmed, meaning if she had gone up alone, the alarm should have sounded. But the maintenance worker later testified that it sometimes didn't function properly. The tanks were tall, about 10 feet high, with ladders leading to the top. To get inside, one had to climb up, lift a heavy metal lid, and drop down into the dark, cold water. For a woman of Elisa's size, that would have been difficult but not impossible.
The official autopsy report, released weeks later, found no signs of trauma, no evidence of sexual assault, and no trace of drugs or alcohol beyond her prescribed medication. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder listed as a significant condition. But for many, that answer only deepened the unease. The internet wasn't satisfied. People refused to believe the case was that simple. They began constructing elaborate theories, some grounded in logic, others spiraling into the supernatural. One theory claimed she had been murdered by hotel staff and placed in the tank to conceal the crime. Another suggested she had been stalked or followed that night by someone staying in the building. Others speculated about a copycat of a 2005 Japanese horror film called Dark Water, in which a young girl's body is discovered in a rooftop tank, contaminating the building's water supply. The parallels were chilling. Same imagery, same setting, same dark symbolism. But the most haunting theory wasn't supernatural at all. It was psychological. Some experts suggested that Elisa may have been experiencing a manic episode, a temporary state of altered perception often caused by bipolar disorder, where reality itself can feel distorted, dreamlike, or hostile. In that state, paranoia can take shape, and fear can manifest as the sense of being pursued. The elevator footage, they argued, wasn't evidence of a haunting. It was evidence of a human mind in crisis. Still, the footage lingered. It became one of the most analyzed and unsettling clips on the internet. Every detail was dissected, from the flicker of her hand to the timing of the elevator doors. Even the smallest inconsistencies fueled debate. Why didn't the elevator close? Was someone out there pressing a button from the hallway? Did someone cut the footage before or after a crucial moment? Some viewers claimed the LAPD edited out sections to protect the investigation. Others said it was simply a mechanical glitch. Either way, the uncertainty became part of the myth. The case took on a life of its own. Web sleuths created timelines, theories, and entire YouTube channels dedicated to decoding the mystery. Documentaries were made. Online forums overflowed with analysis. Every few months, someone new rediscovered the video, and the story reignited. In a digital age hungry for answers, Elisa Lam became a ghost everyone wanted to chase. But behind the millions of views, behind the endless speculation, there was still a simple, human tragedy. A young woman who struggled, suffered, and died alone. The truth, as much as it can be known, is this: Elisa Lam was a person, not a puzzle. Her final moments, whether shaped by fear, confusion, or hallucination, were deeply human, not supernatural. She didn't vanish into thin air. She drowned unnoticed, in a city full of people. That's not the horror of a curse. That's the horror of loneliness. A symbol of every lost soul looking for a door that will finally open. The Cecil Hotel remains a landmark wrapped in caution tape and myth. In 2021, Netflix's documentary Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, tried to untangle fact from fiction. But even then, answers slipped through the cracks. The building was later rebranded, parts of it converted into housing. But the elevator, that same one from the video, still exists. Still functioning. Still capturing reflections of those who dared to step inside. Visitors say it feels colder there. Not haunted, just heavy. Like a place that remembers too much. Every few months, the elevator footage resurfaces. A new generation finds it, watches it, and falls into the same quiet trance. Some search for clues. Others just stare, unable to look away. It's not the horror that keeps them watching, it's the emotion. The way her body language tells a story of fear, confusion, and longing that words can't express. It's a 4-minute glimpse into the fragility of the human mind. A haunting reminder that we are all one moment away from being misunderstood. In death, Elisa Lam became an unwilling storyteller. Her tragedy brought global attention to the importance of mental health awareness, and to how easily the internet can turn empathy into spectacle. Her Tumblr, Nouvelle Nouveau, remains preserved. A digital journal frozen in time. Her final post, dated days before her death, reads simply: 5 words, ordinary, human, hopeful. And yet, knowing what came after, those words feel like a whisper from the edge of something unknowable. Today, if you search her name, you'll find thousands of theories, videos, podcasts, and documentaries. But you'll also find communities, people who found comfort in sharing their own stories of anxiety, depression, and fear. Elisa's story, though tragic, opened doors for others to speak. It taught us that sometimes the monsters aren't in haunted hotels. They're in the silence that follows when people don't understand. If there's a legacy to Elisa Lam, it's that her story still reminds us to look deeper. Beyond the mystery, beyond the footage, beyond the fear. To remember that every headline hides a heartbeat. That behind every unsolved case is a person who dreamed, laughed, and loved. And maybe somewhere in that truth, Elisa found her peace.